Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Do you think we should have our own musical cue on the show?
We actually have our own musical cue.
No, I want my
other show
own
uses
musical
that
cue. I want my own one.
I think if you want it, you should make the request for it.
That's right. Somebody's got to come up with it. Any artists out there? Any musicians out there? Actually, we're going to be searching the web. No, we'll search our Rolodex. Oh, no, people don't have Rolodexes anymore, do they?
I know, but I miss a Rolodex. I kind of miss the sound it makes. I kind of miss the presence.
I never had
one.
one.
Presence on the desk.
I never had one. I had a diary.
Note for Christmas.
Ah, yes.
There you go. I like it. See?
Who was that just jumped in there?
Well, that is the genius known as Tommy Yune, who is the president of animation over at Harmony Gold and the man behind many, many exciting Robotech properties. If you know the iconic product, Robotech, the show, the movies, the soon-to-be feature film. That's him. That's Tommy Yune.
No, there's a lot of Robotech. Robotech Remastered, Robotech Love Live.
Robotech this, Robotech goes to Tijuana. Robotech goes to...
Why haven't I never been on Robotech? This is what I
you should. Well, we were talking about that. You'd be good on Robotech, and I think we can make that deal happen.
We got to fix that.
We have to. I like the way Tommy thinks. You know, we can fix it. You know where we can get that deal done?
Right here in the
Tulare Sci-Fi Con this weekend, because we'll all be there together.
Yeah.
90 minutes north of Los Angeles, people. Adrian, Paul, and I will be doing a live Peace Fund Radio broadcast for the crowd, and we'll be actually mixing it up with people on the floor. Tommy will also be there with some Robotech cast members and about everybody else on the planet. So it'll be good.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be actually kind of fun because we're now going to be utilizing a lot of the cons, etc., to bring content for the Peace Fund and for
as you should.
Other organizations out there. So we're going to be doing some interviews out there and talking to people. But we're going to start this one off because this month we're going to be discussing the entertainment industry and the effect it has on our kids. We're going to be doing the live show from Tulare, and then we'll possibly air it as well the following week, just so that you can hear it. But this week, obviously, we want to talk about entertainment and what the effect is on our children in different areas of society. Now, we would have John Beerley with us. He's not going to be with us today because his grandma passed away. Mary Beerley. She was 100 years old. Lived on her own until she was 99.
That's amazing, though. Great life.
And listen to this. She had 10 kids and 23 grandchildren.
Wow.
More than 30 great-grandchildren. She kept her family in a farm going on her own. Basically, after her husband passed away in 1966, she passed away peacefully surrounded by family, and her example of family and friendship will definitely live on. John, our prayers are with you, and I'm sure your grandmother is in a great place now because she's got a lot of love supporting her. Anyway, this morning, entertainment and industry, the effect it has on our kids. Now, obviously, Tommy, you do a lot with animation, and animation most of the time goes towards a younger audience. Although today it's spanned a very big thing. Have you seen a progression in the types of things that have been made into animation? Has it become more violent? Has it become more? What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's always kids always want to see what pushes the envelope, and maybe where that boundary is always going to change over time. But kids always want to see what parents say. Oh no, you can't see that. That's a little bit too violent, or that's a little bit too sexy, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way human nature is always going to be. But one thing I do notice about the way kids consume their entertainment is their attention spans are narrowing. So, back, I remember, Saturday morning when that used to be a thing, kids would plop down in front of the TV and they would just binge watch cartoons all morning. But now kids, when they're watching stuff on their tablet, nowadays, now that we have our iPads, the kids cold turkey stop watching TV. They're watching everything on their iPads.
Yeah.
Their attention span is literally like 5 minutes. 5 minutes, if a show gets too slow, they're going to move on to something else.
True. I mean, the thing is, the kids today are basically bombarded by different messages. There's the variety of media you're talking about. Obviously, you've got movies, radio, you've got magazines, the internet, and basically the entire entertainment industry. And it's no secret that you've got media messages that kids listen to and they watch and they read, and it has a powerful influence on their lives. Unfortunately, I think some of the messages that lies in the media portrays a healthy, normal behaviour among kids, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think some of this, you're talking about iPads and stuff like that, really an attention span, a kid is now knows how to flick rather than write. He knows how to watch rather than read. So I think, have you found anything of that nature that sort of, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I have two kids. One is 6 and one is 2, and it's amazing to watch how comfortable they are to technology compared to my generation.
Oh, yeah.
When I grew up, I remember the era of the Commodore 64 and the TRS-80s.
Yeah, Commodore 64, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Commodore 64.
Yeah. When 64K of RAM was like mind-blowing back then.
Yeah, that's hilarious. God, dust that one off. I feel like we just went into like an Egyptian tomb and talked about relics.
Yeah.
We just discovered.
Let me tell you, I used to go into the movie theater to watch Flash Gordon. We're talking.
Oh, Sam Jones, my buddy.
But the thing is, you went somewhere. It was an event. Now you don't need the event. You just pull the iPad out or your iPhone or whatever tablet you're actually using. Sorry, but I didn't.
And then you'll see these little viral videos of nowadays, you hand an infant a magazine, and the first thing they're going to instinctively do is they're going to swipe the front of the magazine, wondering why the pages aren't flipping.
Yeah.
Wondering why they're
that.
not getting the touch interface on the paper magazine. It makes me think of Max Headroom. What is this?
Gosh, yeah.
What is
Wow.
this? A book?
We got to have you around here more often. You are just like a walk down flashback technology.
Max
lane.
Headroom, wasn't that in the 90s?
Yeah, it was a commercial that became a TV show.
Was that what it was?
It was a Coca-Cola commercial, wasn't it? It was initially a commercial campaign that became so popular because of the technology that it became a TV show.
Wow.
And the thing I love about that show was it was parodying the future, but so many things about it, darkly became true. Like, remember the Blipvert, people would watch half an hour of entertainment in 3 minutes. And it was kind of a gag in one of their episodes. And now you're looking at the way people consume entertainment, and it's not far from the truth.
Yeah. But obviously everything in the entertainment industry a lot of the time is based on an element of truth. Star Wars was based on the military program, and so things that are developed actually have an essence of truth in the entertainment industry, and then later on they become true. But the entertainment industry influences actions, dress codes, and the values of many adults. It really does. But it also captures and holds kids' interest for a large part of the day, which I think, President Obama basically says he doesn't allow his kids to watch TV. I limit the amount of time they watch it, but sometimes because of the way we live today, we don't have time to spend time with our kids. We've got to go to work. We've got to go do, with the economies in a certain way, you have 2 people working. How do you deal with that? The knowledge that children are picking up from TV can be stunning. I want to put an article out here from education.com. Basically, they shared this story. It said the teacher in Amanda's kindergarten class was introducing the letter-sound relationship of J. When soliciting words children could recall, Miss Pineo got the word judge from 1. So she asked if anyone knew what judge meant. Children responded, it's someone who would send you to jail if you did something wrong, especially if you murdered someone. He'd be sure to send you to jail. When asked how they knew this, the class as a whole replied it was on TV. Now, they're really getting all their information from the television set, all the tablets, etc. There are facts that basically state that on average, kids between 2 and 5, I don't know about your kids, but kids between 2 and 5, my kids too, my kids don't spend this amount of time, but spend 32 hours a week in front of a TV watching televisions or DVDs or DVR or videos. That's an enormous amount of time. 32 hours, that's a day and a half almost. Really, constant. I don't know if you've ever sat in front and watched the screen, how your eyes get kind of wonky. what do you think about that? I mean, do you let your kids spend that much time in front of a television?
They spend 0 hours in front of a TV. They spend all their time in front of a tablet.
So just in time a tablet, really?
Yeah, and here's one of the things that's very important is you cannot shut your kids out from this technology, because what's going to happen is you keep it away, make it a forbidden fruit. When they get to a certain age, they're going to get access to it, and they're just going to binge it. And so the most important thing to do is to basically manage how they're exposed to this, so they're comfortable with it. And the tablets, these devices, they're tools. And one thing I think is important is, instead of getting kids to just consume, it's important to have them create. Like one of the things I give the kids, because they think it's funny, is when they were young, I started them out with a fart piano. It was a piano that made fart noises, but it was musical.
Why am I not surprised by that, Tommy?
And the thing
That's something Ethan would have wanted to have, actually.
No, that's all Tommy right there.
Non-stop entertainment, but then they got into it and they got more interested in a keyboard, and now we have a piano in the house that they're playing with. And so, even
there was a method to the madness.
Yeah.
I mean, what about you, Ethan?
Yes.
How many hours a day does your daughter watch TV? I mean, or tablet, or I mean, is it too much? Is it too little? Is it not enough? What?
It's probably too much, more than I would like. But I'm happy to say most of it's educational or artistic in nature.
Do you
she does
judge?
it after her
Do you
own way.
judge the content that she actually watches and does?
Yeah,
I mean, because I think that's something we don't do as adults. Sometimes we give them the tablet and they go and swipe. My son, when he was a year and a half old, he was figuring out how to swipe and push the iPad. I mean, so really. But I think, what about you, Tommy? Do you what's the word? Police is a strange name, but the types of things that your kids watch or do on a tablet?
Yeah, we do that. I mean, obviously, sometimes there's a little bit of discussion back and forth with me and the missus. We might have different interpretations of what is best for our kids to watch, but we do keep ourselves aware of what they're seeing on their iPad,
because basically 4 in 10 parents allow their children to watch films that are classified above their actual age. So, again, classification, I guess, comes down to what the parent believes the kid can watch. That has to affect them in a sense. I mean, I remember sitting there the other night. My daughter came down, and we're watching something. I can't remember what it was, but there was a. But she's not feeling well, so she was. But we were watching an adult program, and I'm trying to look at her to see whether she's asleep or actually watching it, and she was kind of half, and she wasn't really. But there was a lot of stuff in there that she shouldn't be listening to at that age, because suddenly that does affect how they grow up and how they actually communicate with their peers. I mean, I don't want my kid going into school going F this, or this is bloody, or whatever, but what, all that type of stuff. So the thing about, I want to put some other facts out here, by the way. I'm just looking at some movie-going peaks in the teenage years. People aged 12 to 20 make up 16% of the population, but buy 26% of movie tickets. 71% of 8 to 18-year-olds have a TV in their bedroom. Okay, what do you think about that? Having a TV in your bedroom. Is that smart? I mean, again, we're talking about the amount of hours a kid sits in front of a television set. Is it basically a good thing to have a TV that they mind, because obviously they're going to control it?
I think it depends how you govern it.
What about you, Tommy?
I've actually observed this first. It's almost like a control subject. Couple of siblings that I've observed in our neighborhood, and there's one boy who literally lives in front of his Xbox console, and then he's got a sister who's into sports and plays, rides her bike and plays soccer in the streets, and I can already tell a marked difference in their health when they're only a few years apart.
Really?
Yeah, humongous difference in the way they interact with other children, their personalities. So I think. There is a limit. There is too much to what they're going to from sitting in front of a screen.
It actually says here, because it's interesting you talk about it, because everybody has a different opinion about this, but basically half, which is 53% of households of 7th to 12th graders, there are no rules about TV watching. None. They let them watch what they want. And, most children's programming does not teach what parents say they want their children to learn, and many shows are filled with stereotypes, violent situations, problems, and mean behavior. I mean, basically, that's our society. That's what reality TV has come up with. You know, they basically allow, they profligate. Anyway, they actually make bad situations happen because that's what we want to watch. That, as adults, it's interesting for us to watch somebody fighting or cheating on somebody or swearing at somebody or arguing with somebody. They create that situation, so therefore you allow your kids to sit there and watch those things, thinking that they then grow up believing that's a normal way to actually behave in society. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of kids, they'll emulate what the parents do. They'll see what their parents are doing, and their parents becomes an enormous influence on their kids' lives. And one of the things you were explaining, like reality shows, this is just my personal opinion. I just can't stand a lot of these reality shows.
Right.
Because I think they do set a bad example. And the stuff that we do watch that's closest to reality, you know, like Discovery Channel or National Geographic, you know, our kids are very fascinated by that, you know, watching nature and so forth. And
enjoy that because it's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah, but
sorry to interrupt.
You know, just by our watching choices and kids seeing that what the parents watch often influences what the kids themselves are going to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you got TV or films, a lot of the time when you got a violent act, it actually goes unpunished. There's no consequence to it. You know, and a lot of time humour is attached to it. So, you know, the consequence of human suffering and loss really doesn't come through. I mean, when you go out there and, you know, something of that nature that happens on TV happens in real life, there is a consequence. There is a human loss. There is a suffering. But the kids don't get that. So do you prepare them? I mean, again, are you allowing them to watch this type of content? And does animation do that to you? Do you allow certain amount? Is it regulated? Obviously, certain types of animation, because that's what you're based in. Does that sort of, is that regulated? Should you regulate that type of behavior? Do you ever? I'm sure you don't say, okay, well, I'm doing this for an under 16, so I can't put certain things in it. How do you work on the animation portion of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. We have we'll have our target age group that we're creating a project for, and we'll, you know, stick to that. Sometimes folks want to push the envelope a little bit, and the most important thing to us is, you know, is it just there for, you know, titillation's sake, or is it actually advancing the story? And if it's important to the story, we'll keep a story element in. But other than that, often with these animation projects, before we even begin, we already have our audience age group already mapped out.
Right. I mean, but do other organizations look at it that way? I mean, obviously, you know, because you're looking at your demographics, so you want to, you know, and that obviously affects the content that you're putting into the animation, correct?
Yeah, that always happens when this often happens with creators who don't have children. Is they'll come into a property, and of course, you know, the lure that always happens is they want to make it darker and edgier. But folks who work in the industry who do have their own children, I noticed that, you know, once they've raised their own children, their professional view changes on how they put their projects together.
It really does. It really does. I mean, because I kind of look at that sometimes. I go, ooh, you know, how do I deal with that? And I mean, obviously, you know, you as a person a lot of the time are influenced by your other adults in your society. Therefore, you speak a certain way, you act a certain way. When you have kids, you suddenly go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have acted that way. Because you are really providing an example to your kids. It's interesting. Like, a few years ago, a UCLA Gallup poll of top 3,000 executives in Hollywood showed that 87% felt that the violence in the media influences violence in society, and an MTV poll showed that 92% of the children felt the same way. Now, if these two groups, you know, believe what they've been told, the pollsters, by the pollsters, then the logical question emerges: why do you continue to make salacious violence if you believe that it incites people to violence? And why do you continue to watch the stuff if you believe that incites people to violence? Now, we'll leave that as a question. I want to get talking about that, but I want to actually bring on our hero of the week. We've got our hero. I want to talk to him a little bit. It's Justin Bachman. Last week, on our last week's show, we told the story of Justin Bachman, who survived 3 suicide attempts before age 11 and overcame disabilities including ADHD, Tourette syndrome, and dysgraphia to become a champion for every young person who's ever felt different. Justin has been honoured with countless awards and also serves on the leadership team for the National Tourette Syndrome Association. His organisation is Honour Good Deeds, which you can find at honourgooddeeds.com, and he's joining us today to share his message and his mission. So we're going to get him online, and maybe we can actually talk to him a little bit about, the disabilities, but also maybe what the effects have been, with kids committing suicide, maybe because they have been influenced by TV or radio, or, as you mentioned before, Tommy, the iPad and the tablets that are in society. Are we able to...
Want me to call him?
Yes, please.
All right, here we go.
We'd
Let's
like to
give
get
this a try. This could be very interesting.
We love calls on this show because we never know what we're going to get.
We love the content of the call. We don't love trying to do the technical connection of the call.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but this one's ringing, so this could be very exciting.
This one's ringing. See, we need music in the show because me doing that just doesn't work.
I can probably get you some music.
Yeah, no.
Hey, hold on.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, Justin.
Yes.
Hello, Justin. Good morning. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier and Tommy Yune from Peach Farm Radio.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I mean, John put us in touch with your story last week, and your organization gooddeeds.com, which I think is awesome. We wanted to find out a little bit more from you as to that topic, as well as what we're talking about today, which is the effect entertainment has on the children of today. Where are you calling us from today? Well, where are we calling you from to?
I am in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio right now.
Cleveland. I was there, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I was in Cleveland. It was cold. Is it still snowing there?
Oh, bitter cold, yes.
Yeah, it was minus 16 when I was there. It was not pleasant.
That lasted for a couple of weeks.
Oh, gosh. How old are you now, Justin?
I'm 17 years old. I am a senior in high school.
Senior, good. Okay. So I want to ask, first of all, how did your disabilities affect you at an early age?
Well, when I was younger, specifically before 7th grade, I had no idea who I was. My biggest and most noticeable difference, disability, whatever you would like to call it, is my Tourette syndrome. And I wasn't diagnosed until 7th grade. And so before that, I still had these movements, these twitches, these noises that I couldn't control, but I had no idea why I was doing them. And because I couldn't figure out who I was, it was hard for me to explain to other people around me what I was doing, why I was doing it, and I was picked on relentlessly. For me, not having an identity made it difficult to make friends. I was very lonely. I didn't know where to turn when I needed someone to talk to. And in my younger years, I really just was scared, mad, and lost. And so for me, being different all that time made it very difficult to focus in school because I was just thinking about what everyone else thought. And it made it difficult in my personal life because I didn't know how to communicate with other people effectively.
What type of bullying did this take when they picked on you?
Well, a lot of different forms, and it's kind of hard for me to remember because I've blocked these times out of my mind as effectively as I could. But there's one day that I specifically remember. It was in gym class, and we were partnering up, and there was this one kid that I thought was my friend, that actually in middle school I really did become close with, where everyone was with a partner, and we were the only two that were left. And so I asked if he wanted to be my partner, and he yelled at the top of his lungs about how he was so upset that he had to be with me, and I lost it. I broke down. Because that had happened many times before. I mean, stereotypically out on the playground, I was always picked last for kickball if I was even allowed to play. And for me, a lot of that exclusion, a lot of the name-calling, because I was so different and I didn't understand who I was or the other kids didn't understand me, a lot of that was what really took form and really set in deep.
Where do you think this type of thing? I mean, obviously, we're talking about, today we're discussing entertainment and stuff. Do you think there is an influence to kids that do bully or from entertainment? That is there the violence that's shown on TV? Does that transmit or transfer to children who watch it and then behave like they behaved in your case?
Well, I could see a little bit of a connection. I remember growing up with shows like Recess and everything like that, and these shows had a core group of the cool kids, the popular kids, and for me, I think in my experience, since I didn't fit into that mold that all of us were seeing every weekend morning, everything like that since I didn't fit that mold, that I wasn't necessarily allowed by the other kids to play with anyone, to be a part of anything, and for that reason, the fact that there were these defined characters, these defined ways to act that we saw, that if you deviated from that even slightly, you were ridiculed a lot.
Right, you were you were outside of the norm, and everybody then decided to pick on you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, John told me that you've attempted suicide, and which is a tough subject to talk about. What age were you when you first did that?
I believe I was 10 when I first attempted. I attempted suicide 3 times before I was 11. And I only have a very clear memory of one attempt because, again, I've blocked those times out of my mind as specifically as I can. But there were a lot of times where I would come into my room and the only thing that would be in here was a mattress because I couldn't be trusted with any object, anything that could minutely be used to harm myself in any way. And it really was a difficult time to get through because I didn't know when I would be set off or what I would be around when that happened.
For all the young people listening, I mean, you rebounded from this. How did you do that from that time in your life?
For me, it was my family. After my 3rd suicide attempt, they knew that I needed help from the beginning before I even attempted suicide the first time. But after the 3rd, they really said, we need to do something about this. I was hospitalized. And then in 4th and 5th grade, we connected with a social worker that saved my life. She was at our house 3-4 days a week working with not only myself, but my brother, my sister, my parents, everyone. And it really did help to have that group, that core support team that is my family. We call ourselves Team Bachman. And we really are a tight-knit group. And having them there for me is what really helped me get out of my darker times. And then finally, in 7th grade, when I received that diagnosis of Tourette syndrome, that was when everything broke loose, where I finally knew who I was. I was able to start advocating for myself, for other people with my condition, and knowing the hard times that I had faced, I never wanted to face them again, so I went all out in advocating.
What was this the turning point in your life that decided you to turn these experiences around and help others? Was it the group feeling that allowed you to do that?
My turning point came in 8th grade. For me, getting out of the dark came when my parents really helped me out when I got that family support group in 5th grade. But for me, my turning point of just kind of facing intolerance and finally snapping and doing something about it came after I was disqualified from a cross-country meet because of my tics in 8th grade. I had never faced anything on a scale that large where it was these officials, these authority figures, just not listening to anything I would say. I was having these verbal tics, and they kept telling me to shut up, even though I can't control it. And there was nothing I could possibly do to change their mind. They took away my number. My time wasn't allowed to count. It was devastating.
That's horrible.
But it was hard to deal with. I've never cried so hard in my life that day. But I had teammates that were there for me because they knew about my condition. They had been educated, and that was what I grasped onto. With that family support system, my parents weren't going to just let me sit around and be a victim. They knew that if I was just wallowing in my sadness, I would never get better. And so they said, you have to do something. And after a couple of days of really being upset because that was what I needed to get over it, I went to my parents with a list of 15 charities, and I said, at that meet, my teammates were able to help me because I was educated. So this list had 15 charity groups, and Upside Downs, Autism Speaks, Tourette Syndrome Association, other groups educating people about differences, and then ways to get involved. And I said, what if we had an event where we could educate our entire community on all of these differences? That way what happened to me won't happen to anybody else. And that was where the Tolerance Fair and Honor Good Deeds were born from.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. What was the name of the social worker who stepped in and dedicated that much time to helping you guys come together?
Her name was Marjorie, and I don't know if she wants to remain anonymous, so I won't say her last name, but she really did save my life. She was one of the most amazing people that I could ever thank, and I've tried to get in touch with her a couple of times. I really do hope that she knows how much she really did change my life.
That's awesome. Well, Marjorie, you're definitely a lifesaver. How did speaking to young people change things in your life at all?
100%. For me, after that Tolerance Fair, that event that we held, that actually grew much larger than I could ever imagine. My little list of 15 charities turned to be 48, and 1,000 people came out to this event. And that really showed me that people wanted to learn, wanted to be educated, wanted to make a difference. And in the time of planning the fair, someone had approached me from our local Rotary Club saying, "Hey, I heard about this cross-country meet. Would you mind telling your story? We're having a dinner. Would you like to speak?" And I didn't really give it much thought at first. I didn't know what would come out of it. But as it got closer, I wrote more and more. That speech actually is online. If you search Justin Bachman Tolerance, you will find it. I recommend never watching it ever, because that was before my voice dropped, and I sound like an absolute munchkin.
That happens to all of us, Justin. Don't worry about that.
It is adorable, but it makes me cringe every time I watch it. And that was the first speech I ever gave, and I had never had a forum where I could just share my story and be open with who I was on that large of a scale, and that changed me forever, where I found I could really just, when I had a microphone in my hand, when I was presenting, the world was my oyster. And as I got more involved with the Tourette Syndrome Association, I got involved with the Youth Ambassador Program, and that gave me a speech about Tourette's. And then as I did that more and more, I realized that I wanted to make it about everyone's differences, and so I wrote my own speech, and that I call Living Loud, a bit of a play off of Tourette Syndrome, and it's about being who you are, being proud, and being able to show that off to others. And that transformed my world and made it so I was able to take my story of being different and being proud of it to over 10 states, to 10 states in Washington, D.C., to over 60,000 students, and the journey has been incredible.
That's awesome. You have also, Honor Good Deeds also has an initiative called Good Deeds Matter. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Good Deeds Matter is an initiative that we have where we're really trying to inspire people to do good by others, to do random acts of kindness, to create a chain reaction in their community to keep good going as long as possible. And the way that Good Deeds Matter works is it's another one of those forums, another way to express yourself, where what we do is we have these blank puzzle pieces that we give out or we sell for $1, and you decorate them with a random act of kindness or a good deed that you've done for another person or that you plan on doing. And once you have decorated that, we collect them back, and everyone else in the community that you're in gives us their puzzle pieces, and we put them together. And once they're together, they're what we call mosaics. And these are visual representations of the good deeds and acts of kindness that are being done in that community.
You know, I've said that many times, that if you just did one thing every day, I mean, because the reciprocal thing that people do, when you do something kind for somebody, it takes people back because they don't expect you to do it. It could be something as simple as helping a lady with her groceries or anything.
Opening a door.
Anything, opening a door, exactly. One thing like that really then lets people, it does help people, do the same thing to others. So I think it's a very simple and a great program that you've got there. What's next for you, Justin?
Oh man, well
I know you got your whole life out in front of you, but what's next?
Yeah, going forward, right now we are in the planning process of our 2015 Tolerance Fair. We have one in Washington, D.C., and one in Cleveland. We're very excited to have our first non-Cleveland fair this year. And as those two get closer, it's just a lot of planning, a lot of putting everything together. We're very excited as everything gets near. And if any listeners in the Cleveland area and the Washington, D.C. area, definitely go to honorgooddeeds.com, click on the Tolerance Fair, Cleveland or D.C. to register. And then over the summer, just more speaking, everything like that. And then next fall, I will be attending Syracuse University to major in broadcast and digital journalism.
What is actually held at the Tolerance Fair? I know thousands attend it, but what goes on there?
There is a lot. We're actually, in the past here in Cleveland, it looks a lot like a trade show, where you walk in and there's booths everywhere of different organizations, whether it's an organization that you can get involved with through volunteering so you can learn through your own eyes, or an organization to provide a resource for you, or a way that you can just learn about the differences that everyone has around you. We have these organizations, you come, you can learn. We also have speakers presenting on different topics. We have a lot of interactive areas so you can get involved hands-on, remember things even clearer. And then this year in Cleveland, we're adding on an entirely new conference component where we're starting the day off with nationally known motivational speakers, TED speakers, everything. Really get the day going, get it exciting, interactive, everything. Then we're moving into breakout sessions focused on issues from drug abuse and awareness, self-defense, personality types, giving back, anything and everything you can imagine. That's what the conference is going to look like. And then here in Cleveland at 1 o'clock, our trade show is going to open with what we call empowerment areas, which are more focused areas on dance, art, music, and then our Share Your Story area where you can really express yourself, as well as that trade show atmosphere.
Well, you've got a lot on your plate. I mean, I think that's awesome, and I hope that you get a lot of people that come and listen to you speak, because I think you're very well rounded, Justin, and I think it's a definite plus for your parents. I think because they supported you a lot through this, and I think people have to understand that parents do affect how children grow up, and your parents have done an amazing job with you, and the people that have been around you.
Thank you.
Last thing, I mean, what advice would you give to other young people who want to start their own charities?
Take the first step. The biggest thing that people always say is either I don't have time, I can't do this, I'm young, I can't do this, I don't have the ideas. Once you get going, it really does grow beyond belief. The Tolerance Fair, Honor Good Deeds, everything for me, for our family, started as a coping mechanism. After being disqualified from that cross-country meet, I just couldn't sit around to do nothing, so I had to do something. And little did I know it would change my life forever. The fair has brought people together. It has saved lives, all because we knew we had to do something. And the piece of advice that I can give to anyone who wants to make any difference at all, whether it's worldwide or just the person next door, is take the next step. Do something. Get involved, and it will snowball.
Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning, and best of luck with the Honor Good Deeds. I want to thank you for all the incredible work you're doing on behalf of young people, and congratulations on being the Peace Fund Hero of the Week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Justin. So for those of you out there, Justin Bachman, he has honorgooddeeds.com. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A good deed, I mean, it's a simple thing to do. And this is the thing. We all have great ideas, and yet we never follow through with them. This is a very simple thing to do. And you know, what's your good deed today, Ethan?
Listen, I don't want to deflect your point by actually citing some good deeds I did this morning.
Oh, no. I actually do want to hear it. What are they?
I actually stopped traffic so some kids can get across the crosswalk, for starters.
You see, that's a simple way. You know what I'm going to start doing?
I've done more since then. You want me to keep going?
Oh, no, please. 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 No. How much time do we have left?
To be honest with you, it is a small thing, and it's something I didn't even think about until we were talking about whether or not we'd actually done a good deed today. But it can just be a simple, habitual lifestyle, of just doing things on a,
Absolutely.
It's easy to get the door. You heard the story about the kid who was bullied every day until he got the door for everyone every morning. I posted that story on my Facebook page. And at first, you see that, Tommy?
Yeah.
And everyone thought he was weird at first. And then, because his father had died and people had bullied him. And, he'd even put some photos of his father had passed away in his locker. And kids would tear him down and, shove him in the locker. And one morning, he just started getting the door at the high school for everybody. And gradually, he'd say good morning, and good morning was a simple courtesy, and it was just a way for him, I think, to connect. And, I actually posted that I love this guy. I love what this guy's about. And, other people responded in kind, but it was a great move. And simple things like that, it's amazing how it can change the course of one's day, week, or even life.
Tommy, what's your good deed today? Because I'm going to try and think of what I did today.
His good deed is showing up here.
Oh,
actually, that is a good deed, yes.
Actually, just on the way here, everybody's in a hurry in LA, and it comes down to just psychology. Like, somebody really needs to make that exit. What do? Are you going to be that jerk who cuts them off and doesn't get some glee out of that?
No, I'm joking.
Or are you that person where this guy is in a bigger hurry than I am? Okay, he needs to go where he needs to go.
I'm a big fan of people signal to just let him over.
Yeah.
We'll all be doing a good deed, actually, this weekend in Tulare, actually, on behalf of kids everywhere. So
absolutely.
We're not, I wouldn't say we're lighting the world on fire with our good deeds. We can certainly do more, but we're not actually in the dense category either.
We're talking about dance, we were talking earlier on about kids and entertainment. I mean, music, simple thing to do. It's not all music is good for kids, because when you're listening to stuff on popular music and popular radio, you hear a lot of stuff that has, that exposes kids to certain things that the FCC and similar regulators have a problem with, which, I agree with. However, a lot of the time, certain things are done in the name of freedom and rights, and I don't necessarily think, it's right when you see a little kid walking along the street singing along with the iPod, and out the mouth comes, some profanity because they're hearing what's on the radio. I mean, how do you do that? Do you govern what your kids listen to as well?
You should, I think. I'm sorry, Tommy, your answer?
They're already supposed to kind of be doing that with the explicit lyrics, labeling. It's supposed to be giving parents guidance on what their children are getting access to in terms of both movies and music. It just comes down to, the biggest influence in a kid's life is their parents.
That's right. And I think, honestly, when companies do try to regulate that, like the Tipper Gore syndrome, it only encourages people to buy it and listen to it. And, they feel more rebellious. Organizations say you shouldn't listen to this. That would kind of reverse psychology. So I'm with you. I think you have to kind of listen to it for yourself and see what your kids are listening to. And hopefully, by the time they're listening and picking their own music, you've already embedded sort of a sense of what would you say? Responsibility and class in the kid.
Well, it's also, kids who listen to this stuff don't necessarily learn the boundaries of public versus private, language. And they don't know what crude is. A kid comes out with a profanity, just thinks...
Definitely the parent's responsibility there. And
absolutely.
At a very early age, you need to start
Okay,
that.
Here's another thing. How do you deal with it when your child does it? What do you do when your kid comes out with a swear word of some sort? Do you address it, or do you say, okay, let's...
Well, I think that my kid probably corrects me more than I have to correct her.
Yeah, but that's a different situation.
I have never heard her say a swear word. I've never had to correct it, but I would probably take a gentle approach if I had to. But she usually is the one correcting me. She hates foul language. Tommy, what do you do? You're not one to...
I haven't had that problem, but maybe it might come down to, what do you want your kids to aspire to? Do they want to aspire to be the bad kid in the class? It's just setting them on a path early on. Once they want to aspire to something, greater on their own, they almost become self-propelled in terms of the route that they take, just like your child. And, even more so than the bad words themselves, what is the message? Even if kids might cuss, great example is there was an album that George Carlin did with the parental advisory label, and it was humongous on it, and he starts off cussing just so he got the label.
Well, that goes back to the point we were saying earlier, the label was gold to a lot of these artists.
Yeah. But then at the same time, what he discussed in that album was some of the most educational stuff I could think of.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
The interesting thing is when you have a 2-year-old that suddenly comes out with a word, apparently the consensus by experts is basically to let it go. Don't address it because they'll forget it. Because at 2 or 3 years old, you actually have a child saying something. The minute you start addressing it, and we found that when my son says stupid, and we addressed it, and he kept thinking it was funny because we addressed it. So he kept saying, this is stupid, that's stupid, you're stupid, that's stupid. Now I've gotten to the point of going, you've got to stop this now, because it's gone on for 2-3 months.
I would like to see you do that.
Oh, well, that's, I mean, we've now got to the point, kids do understand. They're not stupid. Kids, believe it or not, even though they can't actually say things sometimes, they are understanding what you're talking to them about. And when you look at them and you're like, you can't say that word, because if you say that word, we're going to have to put you on a timeout because it's not a good word. They get that there is a repercussion for it. You can't smack them. You can't do... At first, there's different levels of addressing that type of situation, I think.
Well, at your birthday last year, your son, typical of that age, was pretty animated, and I thought you handled it well.
Oh, what did he do?
No, he's just being a 2-year-old. I mean, that's what 2-year-olds do.
Oh, you should see him now.
But it was interesting because I think you were trying to regulate his behavior on that day, and I don't know if success was necessarily with you on at that particular event, but it was interesting.
But success is never with you all the time. I mean, Tommy, you know that when you're dealing with kids and you
or much of the time.
Or much of the time.
Actually, I think you were on the mark in terms of your child picking up on this keyword. Like this happened with our son, who's now 2, and I heard that it happens often. Is one of the early words that kids glom onto is the word no.
Yeah, cool.
And not because of what it means, but because they notice it gets a rise out of the parents. And kids will understand, hey, this is getting more attention from my parents. And so if you, like what you were doing, you respond in the right way, you can eventually get them to figure out, what the message is supposed to be, whether it's appropriate or not with a certain word. But then if you don't respond right, they just use it just to get a rise out of you because it gets a response out of you.
Well, the thing about no, why do you think kids say no? Because from the minute they're born, you're saying, no, you can't do that. No. So it's the one word they hear constantly. So is it any surprise that you're going to hear no? I mean, my daughter goes, no, and I just let it go because she'll do it because I'm going. So, but she's got to express that. I don't want to stop her from expressing it, but that is a word that both my kids heard at some point, and then we realized, oh my goodness, it's coming from us. It's coming from the parents saying no, and therefore, what do you expect your kids not to say it? So, yes, they're going to get a rise from you. But, yes, that's also because you've taught them that word. It's a simple, I want to actually give a shout-out right now to organizations that are making a difference. Common Sense Media, www.commonsensemedia.org. It's a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator. Common Sense is dedicated to helping kids thrive in a world of media and technology. They empower parents, teachers, and policymakers by providing unbiased information, trusted advice, and innovative tools to help them harness the power of media and technology as a positive force in kids' life. Now, there's a really interesting thing. How much media is actually in schools today? That's a whole nother topic because the type of media that's in there, some schools have an interactive. Should you have media in schools? Yes or no?
Probably a little bit, I would think.
Oh, I think absolutely. And the kids should learn about how to harness it correctly. Like when kids learn to create instead of just consume, I think that sets them on a much better path.
Ethan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Some media is probably good.
I was just looking at this because basically learning to use media and technology wisely, it's essential today because we live in a society that is media driven. I mean, not only media, but technology driven. And you got to learn how to live life in the 21st century. Otherwise, you're not going to. But it's basically up to the parent to figure out what type of media and what type of technology the kid is going to actually be able to use because you don't want them to lose other skills that are a natural human trait. Like writing, like speaking to people. We deal with media all the time. Do you think you should have your child have a telephone at age 8 or 9 years old? Because a lot of parents do it.
That's a little young for a telephone. I'm going to get my daughter a telephone. She's 12, but she's not allowed to text on it.
Okay, so what do you do? How do you get rid of the text portion of it?
To be honest with you, no, it'll probably be there, but I can tell her not to do it, and she won't do it, actually, at least now.
But not all kids are going to do that.
Not all kids are. Well, every single kid is different.
Do your kids do this, Tommy? Would they say are they going to listen to you? Do all kids listen to their parents?
No. But in situations like that, my kid does listen.
So what do you do? Do you give your kids a telephone?
No, they don't have it. My daughter has her own iPod. And
She can't text on that.
Actually, she figured out how to get free apps in there.
Oh God, you see, that's the kids. They know how to get all this free apps.
That's good because you're encouraging
How old is your
education
daughter?
and innovation.
How old is your daughter?
She is 6.
6.
Jeez.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, we had to
Form a company and start selling stock.
Yeah,
immediately.
we had to password protect, our credit card information, stuff like that, to make sure she didn't buy anything. But yeah, that's just the way kids are. But in terms of the phone, I haven't had that problem yet. I fear the day when we're going to have to deal with it. But yeah, it's going to happen.
Well, we're going to continue this subject because there is so much on it that we haven't touched. Entertainment, industry, media, etc. for your children. Tommy, thanks for joining us this morning. Ethan, thank you for bringing me to the world.
Thank you, and I will see you both in Tulare Con.
Yeah, and thanks to
in
my
Tulare,
mother for bringing me in the
California.
world too. My mom.
Thanks to your mom.
Thanks to my mom, yeah. And thanks for all of you out there for listening and for joining us this morning. In closing, I have a quote by Dr. Haim Ginott, or Guinaud, depending on how it's pronounced. Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We'll talk to you next week.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.